Do do do, theme song. Do do do, I'm broke, so this is my theme song. Do do do, just imagine this is an awesome theme song. Do do, theme song. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy. I was trying to make that a little bit more smooth. Anyway, I just got buzz on my phone. Okay. Just a second. I know this is great timing. I have to do like 12 different things with this. Okay, we're good. We're good to go. This is Left of the Box. I'm SandeeLovas. How is everyone doing today? Thank you for showing up. Let's see, we have the Anti-Corporatist, Sheldon, Looney Tunes 9000, Art Music. Oh, there's Left of the Box. I'm in the chat too. Art Music. Oh, Art Music 2. Gotta make sure I add the 2. Hello, Bob and Donald and Tyler. It's great that all of you are coming out. I hope like these Sunday afternoons are kind of a good time for people. The trick with the Sunday afternoon though is that I don't want to make the stream too doom and gloom, you know. I don't want to talk about too many bad things because, you know, it's the weekend, we're still unwinding, we want to have a little bit of fun, and a little bit of fun is what I'm going to try to do. So a little later on, I'm going to be doing like a little improv thing. I keep on threatening. Oh, how's my volume? People were saying it was low in my last stream. So just let people know, just let me know what my volume is, and we'll go from there. But anyway, I was saying before I got sidetracked, I plan on doing like a little improv thing later on this stream. So what I need from you guys now are what is called asks fors. So things that I might add into the improv. So what I want from you guys is an unusual hobby, and just start typing them in, and I may or may not end up using them. So an unusual hobby, or an odd thing to ask a politician, like an unusual odd thing to ask a politician. A very mundane daily activity. Let's see if anybody there has gotten anything for me to write down yet, and you'll know it when I hit it, what I'm doing. We'll get there. This is the joy of improv. You know, I'm using these later on. Okay, good. Volume sounds okay. I might just do other things that I see in the chat as kind of like asks for the improv that I plan on doing in a little bit on here. So yeah, just an unusual hobby, odd things to ask a politician, mundane daily activities, the weirdest place you've ever been on a date. There's another one. So like all those things, just start putting them in the chat. Hopefully I'll see them, and I'll do the old-fashioned thing of like writing it down so that it's ready for when I plan on using them. Anyway, here we go. So today I am going to be covering a press conference that Justin Trudeau held. I guess it was yesterday. He had a fun little slip up in it, but there's other things worth noting in that press conference that we'll be going over. It's only a 16-minute long press conference, so we should be able to cover the whole thing. Of course, David Dole got to it way before I did because he's just so on top of that stuff, and I envy him how he can do that so fast. Yeah, Justin Trudeau had a hilarious Freudian. I wouldn't call it a Freudian slip though, because it's not like it's something he secretly deep down wants. We'll get to it. It's a lot of fun. I'm also going to be talking about Canadian healthcare and how it's being privatized. I'm not entirely sure how that will be made fun, but I'll do my best. And there are a couple other things to just kind of go over. Quick update. Let's go to here. Sarah Jama, the Hamilton Centre constituency office is currently operating and available to support constituents. We are welcoming you into the space November 14th at 9 a.m. to hear directly from us about the next steps. So good news, Sarah Jama, after being kicked out of the NDP caucus, now has her office up and going and available to serve the people of her riding. So she continues by saying, I'll share my plans to operate as an independent MPP, invite you to tour the renovated space, and will share my plans to challenge the censure motion. To attend this visit, please, you'll have to register. You can't just show up. Well, I imagine you can, but they like to have numbers ahead of time so they know how many supplies, what to expect, that sort of thing. So let's see. Oh, I see something. Ghost hunting. Okay. I'll write that down. Sorry, I'm going to be like going back and forth in the chat as I see these things come up. Because it is, again, it's for like a little improv thing. I don't know how well it's going to work because this is all experimental. So thank you everyone for working with me on this. It's going to take a little bit of time for me to just get into the groove of all these live streams, but I want to try to add something, like I said, fun and interesting to them. So Looney Tunes 9000 says, I've never been to any weird places on a date. Yeah, well, the nice thing about going to a weird place on a date is that you immediately have something to talk about. So just an unusual hobby, an odd place to have a date, an odd question to ask a politician, and a mundane daily chore of some sort. And I will hopefully be able to incorporate them. So I'll just scooch back up here, let you all know a little bit of some plans for the next little while. Tuesday is going to be when I'm going to try to have my regular live streams at 7 p.m. However, this Tuesday, there's a meeting for a group I volunteer with at 7:30 p.m. So what I'm going to try to do is that promised Million March for Children video that I've been promising to do. I now kind of have a deadline for it, because what I'll try to do is set it up for a premiere at that time. If that all fails, because November is just a rotten month for me, emotionally wise, then I'll just hop on and do a live stream. We'll see. The more it's extreme. So that's the plan for Tuesday. I do have a guest coming on a week from today. C's from the Power Report. I am poaching Dan's co-hosts. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, I am just going right around him and I'm going directly to the sources. And that should be a lot of fun. And I've asked other people to come on my live stream and things are in the works. Anyway, let's see if there's any more things that I need to write down. Yeah. Yeah, I'm still working out all this flow thing. We'll get there. Let's go back to the news share. Now, I'm going to say things like the news share because that's what I call the scenes that you see set up. But I've added something really neat. I can change that as I'm going along. So when I have different segments, I can actually like type it in there. Kind of like I see the serfs do that all the time, and I'm copying all the other, successful YouTube streamers or Twitch streamers and stuff because, I guess that's how it's done. So let's see, the problem is that my spelling is horrid. So let's go with okay. And oops, no, other way, other way. Look at that. I don't like, it needs to be centered more. Come up here. There we go. There we go. Smooth, huh? Da, 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 da. So before we get to that, there was this little video I was trying to show on my last live stream with Timur, but I don't think between having the streaming service, my OBS and everything, it wasn't working. So let's see if it works this time, because it is, somebody trying to praise him saying, this is the strongest language I've heard yet from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on Gaza.
We, of course, continue to unequivocally condemn Hamas's abhorrent terrorism, and Israel has the right to defend itself.
Not that it needs repeating at this point, but when you refer to Israel having the right to defend itself, it's now just code for, we'll let them do whatever they want.
But the price of justice cannot be the continued suffering of all Palestinian civilians.
It can't be all of them. No, not allowed to be all of them, but what is the cutoff then? What is it? Is it half? 25%, 70%? Can't be all, but if we have like a family left over, is that good enough? Like, some suffering is okay. It just can't be all suffering. Is that what you're trying to say, Justin?
We are deeply concerned by the catastrophic impact on the population in Gaza, particularly on children, which is why we are calling for humanitarian aid and water and fuel to flow into Gaza. We're calling on humanitarian pauses to allow that to happen. We're calling on the liberation of hostages, on aid to flow in, and on Canadians and their families to get out of Gaza through the Rafah crossing.
Yeah, so we want humanitarian aid to flow in. For like, how does that happen? Like, how can you trust that aid is going to get in without, the shipments being bombed and stuff? Maybe if there was like no threat of them being attacked, no bombs coming in, that sort of thing. Maybe if there was a cease to, the violence, the hostilities, what's a ceasefire, maybe, then we could get that humanitarian aid in there. It just sounds like a really lame rebranding, when for some reason I'm thinking of when the United States rebranded French fries Freedom Fries after 9/11, and they were going to the war in Iraq, but France wasn't backing them up. So it's like, oh, they can't be French fries now. They have to be Freedom Fries. They're just so against the term ceasefire, because I think there's less wiggle room for them to get out of it afterwards. If, a humanitarian pause, like, okay, we'll just pause the violence so people can go in, get in, that sort of thing. But afterwards, the bombing can continue. But a ceasefire, that might be a little bit more permanent. And also just this idea, like, we need the humanitarian pause to let the Canadians come out. But all the non-Canadians have to remain there and suffer. Yeah.
Positive thing, we of course.
So it looks like it worked this time. I'm just going to see if there are any other little asks that I got. Art music 2, gaslighting therein lies. Yes, he is very good at that. Let's see. Okay. I see something. Sorry if I do miss any asks, and even if I don't, then I might not be able to use them. Again, it's improv. These are just to help me get ideas for what's coming up. I want to throw in more improv into this because, well, I'm a former improviser. I like doing it. So, yeah, Justin Trudeau is very much trying to play this game of supporting Israel at all costs while trying to make himself look not like a monster. It's not working. As we've seen over the past couple days, the amount of people hitting the streets, protesting and stuff has just been amazing. There's been so many people standing up against this, and the pressure is working. There are politicians on both sides of the border that are starting to waver in their idea of Israel has a right to defend itself, and just the brutality and horror of what we're seeing. But we'll get to a little bit more of that in a bit. Yeah, we'll get to the horror in a little while. But here we have the press conference. Let's see if can I make this like big screen? There we go. So this is the press conference that I was telling you about. Again, David Dole already jumped on this, which is just kind of annoying. Because I was like, I was thinking I was doing it so soon afterwards that maybe I would get the first word in on this. But nope, he's right. He's so talented. It's, yeah. Oh. Let's go back down. Okay. So, like I said, this press conference is about 16 minutes long, and in it is where that little slip up happens that we'll get to. But then there were also some other interesting things that's like, maybe we should talk a little bit about that. But we'll start from the beginning. Look at that swagger walking in there.
Bonjour tout le monde. Aujourd'hui, j'ai participé au sommet des dirigeants du Partenariat des Amériques à Washington.
Okay, so for the American viewers, Canada is a bilingual country. Yep, we speak English and French. In fact, it's taught in our schools. It's demanded by law that Canadians speak French. And our French is a very unique brand of French. You know, you can't really just go to France and speak our French. It's all in its own nature. So what I'm going to do for all of you is I'm going to translate the French parts because there's no official translation for this. And so I'm going to help all my American buddies here with French translations of what Justin Trudeau said. So he just started by saying he's in Washington, the city sucks. There's way too many ducks in the pond that are causing little stirs with like the little pooping that they do. And he accidentally stepped on some today. That's what he just said there.
C'est un sommet qui rassemble 12 pays de l'hémisphère occidental et qui est organisé par le président Biden. Et je vais revenir à ma rencontre.
Okay, so President Biden had an accident twice today. That's what he just said. Yeah, totally what he just said. And the accident is apparently has been classified as top secret, but he just accidentally let that slip out.
Avec le président Biden dans quelques instants. During the APEP summit today,
And it's like, what can you do? Quelque sont. What can you do? That is the Canadian English translation of that.
we talked about the economy, climate action, the geopolitical context in the world right now, and the importance of democracy. During these turbulent times, it is more important than ever to work with close partners in the hemisphere to strengthen our supply chains, protect ourselves from the impacts of climate change, and ensure stability, which is essential to prosperity.
So he's gaslighting here. So translation is, this is what we would like the world to think that we're doing, but we're not doing any of that. Well, they're working with their partners around the world, but not for the state of things that he just said. It's more for, the capitalistic gains, the, colonial enterprises, that sort of thing. Because you can tell a lot about people by the friends they keep. Let's see. So we have Bob, I am from South Louisiana and still never learned French. Well, consider this a little bit of a tutorial for you.
For example, earlier this year, to help build climate resilience, Canada partnered with the Inter-American Development Bank Group and committed $5 million to promote the use of nature-based solutions in Latin America and the Caribbean.
Wonder if that was with those countries' permission. Anyway, I'm just going to skip ahead a tiny bit. This is from the CPAC website, so I can't speed it up at all. And I want to get to where the press conference
from the
starts.
Western Hemisphere. And we are committed to helping migrant hosting communities on the ground, too, by investing towards better access to clean water, education, and other basic necessities.
About that clean water thing, maybe maybe work on getting that sorted out in Canada. Yeah, for all the Indigenous communities that still need it. That would be a good start. Yeah, basically he comes out to do this press conference and he starts off with just, it's kind of like not poisoning the well, but like sweetening the well, trying to give everyone the impression that what he's about to say will be all good stuff. But I should have time-stamped this better to when the actual thing starts.
Discuss a range of issues. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and the relationship between Canada and the United States is very important in how we engage with all these issues. Of course,
we usually wait for the United States to say something, and then we go along with it. That's the relationship of Canada and the United States. Like, when there's a coup happening, we have to wait for the United States to declare who the leader is before our politicians can also agree with them and declare that leader.
We talked about the Middle East and Hamas's terrorist attack. We've all seen too much horror these last weeks. Kids being killed, pregnant women needing care, communities devastated. You don't need...
What's causing it? What's causing it, Justin? What is causing that horror? The kids dying, the pregnant woman. What is the cause of this horror, and what can stop it? Justin?
Need me to describe the horror, because we're seeing it every night, every time we open social media. We all want it to stop. We need a humanitarian pause.
There's another word for that, to make all the horror stop. There's another word for it.
But let me repeat what needs to happen, and what needs to happen now. First, all the hostages need to be released. We need much...
Is that just the
y
hostages?
compris
Oops.
ici, bien sûr, aux États-Unis.
Is that just the hostages that Hamas has, or is it also including, the hostages that Israel has? I read somewhere it's like 10,000 Palestinians are being held in prison for made up reasons. Do they count as hostages in this? Or is it just the ones that Hamas has that Israel is actually disproportionately killing? Those ones?
We all want it to stop, to be released.
There we go.
We need much more aid going to the Palestinian people, and we need innocent civilians to be protected in Gaza and increasingly in the West Bank, including from extremist settlers.
Again, where is that hostility coming from? Extremist settlers? Where are these settlers coming from? Like, where is this hostility coming from towards them?
On the issue of Canadians and their families in Gaza, we are encouraged by the assurances that Minister Joly received from Israel and from Egypt that Canadians and their families will be able to leave Gaza in the coming days.
But all the other ones can stay there and suffer.
We will not stop until all Canadians are brought out to safety. On va continuer de travailler avec nos partenaires dans la région et ailleurs dans le monde, y compris ici, bien sûr, aux États-Unis.
So he's saying here that while he was in Washington, he did a little bit of ghost hunting in one of the old parliamentary buildings. And he was actually quite surprised at what he saw. Let's see if he explains it a little bit more.
Merci d'être ici aujourd'hui. Je suis très content de répondre à vos questions.
Apparently, the ghost asked him a question.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Merci.
Oh, he wasn't going to say. He just said that he asked a question, but he didn't finish. That's a bit of a tease. I wanted to know what the ghost asked him. Maybe he'll say it in the next time he speaks French.
Premier ministre, on va commencer la période de questions. Une question, un suivi avec Radio-Canada.
Oui, bonjour, M. Trudeau, Louis Blouin. Il y a des centaines de ressortissants étrangers d'autres pays qui sont sortis ces derniers jours.
Okay, so they're asking him, they're actually following up on the ghost hunting question because they're like, with all that's happening in the world, did you really think now is an opportune time to go ghost hunting? Because, we're kind of adding to the surplus of ghosts in the world. So that's not, what Canadians are expecting our Prime Minister to do.
Pour le Canada, on comprend qu'il va falloir attendre au moins jusqu'à dimanche. Ma question, pourquoi est-ce que ça prend aussi de temps, autant de temps pour les Canadiens spécifiquement de sortir?
So he's wanting to know if the taxpayers are covering this.
Et quand vous avez discuté avec le président Biden ce matin, est-ce que vous lui avez demandé un coup de pouce?
Évidemment, nous travaillons.
Ma question, pourquoi est-ce que ça prend aussi de temps, autant de temps pour les Canadiens spécifiquement de sortir? Et quand vous avez discuté avec le président Biden ce matin, est-ce que vous lui avez demandé un coup de pouce?
Cuckoos. Okay, yeah. So are taxpayers covering this? And if so, is it going to be declared as a regular expense? Is it going to be a write-off? Because, the average Canadian doesn't have the money to afford groceries these days. And here he is using taxpayer money to go ghost hunting. Well, he's in Washington with everything that's going on in the world.
Évidemment, nous travaillons tous ensemble pour sortir nos ressortissants de Gaza.
Oh, here we go. The ghost apparently asked Justin Trudeau if he condemns Hamas. Yeah, and he said yes. And then the ghost left him alone. Yeah.
Nous avons une situation extrêmement complexe, mais le...
Yeah, it was an extreme situation. And he said that it was a very valuable exchange, though.
Canada et Mélanie Joly en particulier, on est en train de travailler avec les Israéliens, avec les Égyptiens, avec les Américains.
Well, he said he went ghost hunting with some Americans, with Joly, with other people. So it's not like it was an expense, a taxpayer expense, solely for his benefit.
avec tout le monde pour essayer de sortir le plus rapidement possible les Canadiens et leurs familles. On a beaucoup d'espoir qu'on va...
Oh, he was hoping to see a Canadian family that was apparently haunting this old Parliament building. And yeah, okay. Apparently they had the secrets that he was looking for, that the map said would lead him to the power source that would save the world.
qu'on va les voir dans les journées à venir, mais on va continuer de travailler sans relâche pour que ça se passe le plus rapidement possible.
Yeah, so he wanted to he wanted to figure out how to get this power source as fast as possible. Hey, I'm just translating what he said, that's all.
J'aimerais vous entendre sur la riposte israélienne. L'ONU a dit dès le 19 octobre, des experts de l'ONU, qu'il y a un risque de génocide contre le peuple palestinien. Le premier ministre israélien lui affirme qu'il ne fera aucun compromis dans sa riposte tant que les otages qui sont détenus par le Hamas ne sont pas libérés. Est-ce que cette ligne dure défendue par le premier ministre israélien vous inquiète? Est-elle acceptable?
Tout d'abord,
Okay, so he said, that's great, but do you condemn Hamas?
nous comprenons tous à quel point Israël veut et a besoin que ses otages soient libérés. On parle de 200 personnes qui ont été enlevées de leur résidence le 7 octobre, qui sont dans des situations extrêmement difficiles. C'est certain que ces otages doivent être retrouvés, doivent être libérés. En même temps, on doit se demander si le coût de la justice doit être que tous les civils palestiniens souffrent. On a besoin d'assurer de l'aide humanitaire, on a besoin d'assurer de l'eau, des médicaments, de la nourriture, de l'électricité pour pouvoir fonctionner. Et c'est pour ça qu'on appelle à des pauses humanitaires le plus rapidement possible pour protéger la vie des civils.
Next question.
Yes, I condemn Hamas.
Adrian Moore with the Globe and Mail. Prime Minister, in your conversations with President Biden, did you get the sense that Israel is any closer to agreeing to these humanitarian pauses? And what are you doing to get them there?
I can't speak for Israel's decisions right now. What I can say is countries like Canada and the United States and others are continuing to encourage everything that can be done to protect human life, including with humanitarian pauses. This is something that I did speak about with President Biden. We shared our concerns. We also will continue to stand steadfast in terms of ensuring that Hamas is held to account, but also...
What about holding Israel to account for everything Israel's doing? Why is it always just Hamas? Like, why can't they be real at any point and just say what Israel is doing is wrong? That these deaths that are now 10,000 from what I just saw on Twitter, that this is a result of Israel. Why is it always focused on Hamas? It's so hard for, colonial countries to own up to other countries doing colonial horrors, because calling them out would mean calling out things that Canada has and continues to do.
Also ensuring that everything is done to protect civilian life, including Palestinians in Gaza and in the West Bank.
What are your thoughts?
Everything to protect civilians? Huh? What would that be? Everything? Huh?
It's on some people calling for a ceasefire. What are your thoughts on the possibility of ceasefire?
It's hard to watch the news every night and see the impacts on civilians, including children, and not want it to stop. We understand how difficult the situation is, the impact of the horrific terrorist attack by Hamas, Hamas, an organization that is not only responsible for the deaths of...
So far the question to should we call for a ceasefire is things are bad. Yeah, they're horrible. Hamas is bad. That's not actually answering the question.
Of Israelis, but also, and over years and decades, responsible for the deaths of Palestinians as well. We need to see a cease. We need to see a humanitarian pause so we can flow. We need to see ceasing of the levels of violence that we're seeing.
So close to just letting that out. Let's see.
A cease. We need to see a humanitarian pause so we can flow. We need to see ceasing of the levels of violence that we're seeing.
It's like, ooh, how fast could I backtrack that? Whoops, no, I didn't. I wasn't about to say ceasefire. Gosh, no, not me. Ceasefire? No. A cease to stop, you know, like the violence. We need a cease to that. Like, oh, he was just so close.
Deaths of Israelis, but also, and over years and decades, responsible for the deaths of Palestinians as well. We need to see a cease.
Fire.
We need to see a humanitarian pause so we can flow. We need to see ceasing of the levels of violence that we're seeing. We need to see civilians protected. We need to see a humanitarian pause to get aid in, to get Canadians out, to get vulnerable people out, to get hostages released. These are the things that the people around the world are looking for.
Yeah, and all of that could be accomplished by a cease. Fire. Those, you can say those two words together, you know. They're, it is actually, when I Google it, it is one word. Ceasefire. It's one word. You can do it, Justin. So close. So close. Just give into that base. Just, you know, give in to the people protesting and rallying. You know, I know it's hard to separate yourself from, you know, your weapon dealer buddies and all the money that's involved with this, but just for the sake of a humanitarian pause, can you do the decent thing and call for a ceasefire? Be bold, be the first. Be the country I thought this was when I was a kid.
Évidemment, on ne peut pas voir les nouvelles à chaque soir, voir les enfants tués, voir le cataclysme humanitaire qui est en train de se dérouler, sans vouloir que ça cesse. Nous comprenons absolument à quel point...
So far he's saying, that was a close call. I almost said the wrong thing. Wow, do I ever need a coffee?
Hamas doit être rendu en justice. Il doit avoir des conséquences pour Hamas. Mais nous devons nous assurer que la vie civile soit protégée. C'est pour ça que nous appelons pour des corridors humanitaires, pour une pause humanitaire, pour de l'aide pour les civils palestiniens. Nous demandons que les...
So he's been to cafe after cafe, but none of them have good coffee. Like, he's wondering, why are there no Tim Hortons around where he can at least get a photo op from and have coffee that he's familiar with? Because American coffee sucks.
Les otages soient remis en liberté. Nous demandons qu'on fasse tout ce qui est nécessaire pour ça.
Demandons, confess. Yeah, he demands that the Americans confess to the fact their coffee sucks.
Sortir les Canadiens et leurs familles de Gaza.
Next question.
Oh, and he condemns Hamas.
Alex Panada, CBC News. Hi, Prime Minister. My colleagues are reporting that Canadians in Gaza might be able to leave on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Can I ask you what specific services the Canadian government intends to offer? What is the Canadian government going to be doing for people who manage to make it across the border?
We are working with all of our regional officials and our allies to make sure
Just so you know, that clean water he just drank, he doesn't see any, the privilege he has to be able to do that based on where he was born. And you know, it's a little thing. It's a little like it's nothing really, but it is just he enjoys the privileges of being a white man in Canada, talking about the horrors that everyone else is facing in these countries and telling them what they should want and need. You know, he has no problem letting them suffer from the comfort of being in a coffee-less state.
That as Canadians come out to safety, hopefully in the coming days, they are properly supported. We've been there from the very beginning for people.
Yeah, we have been there from the very beginning, selling weapons and giving money.
Leaving the West Bank, for people leaving Israel since October 7th. We will continue to be there.
History started before October 7th. Just, I hope people aren't getting too annoyed with like all this pausing and stuff. Just, yeah.
To help Canadians and their families get to safety.
So there would be consular officials on the ground?
We will be there as we are.
Selling weapons.
Hi, Prime Minister Brian Platt with Bloomberg. Earlier this week in Ottawa, the U.S. ambassador said your country's in for a big fight if you move forward with the digital tax that would hit a bunch of big American tech companies.
So here he's talking about there's Bill C-18, Bill C-18, Bill C-11, which had to do with like online news and taxing online content creators who make over like $10 million a year and all that sort of stuff. I have videos on Bill C-11, but this is, you know, somebody asking a question about policy related to Canada stuff while he's standing in America.
Did you discuss that with President Biden this morning? And are you willing to risk American trade retaliation by moving forward with this?
The finance minister addressed that issue earlier this week in her press conference. But I can tell you, this morning we talked about a lot of different issues. That one didn't come up.
Of course not. Actually, I don't besmirk it, because with everything that's going on right now, whether or not we're taxing, you know, big media corporations that weren't used to being taxed or something, well, taxing is generally speaking good. There are more pressing matters at hand right now. Just saying.
Okay. Did India come up in your conversations with Biden? And is there any update that you have? Have you been briefed at all from law enforcement officials on the investigation? Are you concerned that this may end with no criminal charges? Just any update that you have at all on that?
Just a reminder, there was a prominent person, an Indian man who was assassinated by India while in Canada. He was an Indian Canadian. So Canadian citizen, prominent within his community, was assassinated, and it caused a bit of a stir, but it's been very quiet on that subject as of late. They're probably working on things behind the scenes, you know, backroom conversations about this, because this is part of the sausage that not all governments would want people to see necessarily.
Canada is a country of the rule of law.
No, we're not. We are not. No. We're supporting war crimes right now.
We will always be. We were responsible and serious in how we approached the allegations we shared, and we continue to ask the Indian government to work with us to get to the bottom of this matter, to get clarity on this matter. And we also deplore the violation of the Geneva Convention that the Indian government chose to do when
he's only okay with the Geneva Convention being violated when it's countries that he gets along with better.
they arbitrarily suspended the diplomatic immunity of over 40 Canadian diplomats in India.
Wasn't
For a
so
country to simply
arbitrary.
decide
Yes, it was in retaliation for Justin Trudeau actually, doing what he should and calling out the Indian government for their actions. Because making that claim to begin with is it was a serious thing that happened. But it would only make sense then that India would reciprocate with something like this.
that as of a few days from now, your diplomats will no longer have diplomatic immunity, is against all the principles of global diplomatic conventions. And for us, it's an example that that we need to continue to impress upon the Indian government the importance of the rule of law.
See, it's okay when Canada, the United States, Israel goes against all of these conventions that are out there. But as soon as another country does it to us, like, come on, we're not, you can't do that to us. Like, we're the ones that do it. Yeah, that is, some high entitlement there.
Next question.
Hi, Prime Minister James McCartan, Canadian Press. You said earlier this week that while you believe that Israel has a right to defend itself, the price of justice cannot be the continued suffering of all Palestinian civilians. I'm wondering if you think that constitutes collective punishment, and if not, how we should interpret what you said.
Yes, I'm going to allow, you know, obviously the discussions will continue in academic circles, in diplomatic circles, in legal circles around this issue. For me,
wait, is he waiting for a different definition of collective punishment? Is that what he's saying? That, we're looking into what this term means as opposed to, what it actually means right now. Because if we go by what it means now, then that would mean that Israel is in fact doing collective punishment. And yeah, that makes things a little awkward.
For me, it's a matter of common sense. Seeing the suffering of so many people is not, to my mind, leading towards opportunities for a two-state solution. It's not leading towards greater prospects for peace in the medium and long term in the region. And that's what we all need to be focused on. Yes, there need to be consequences for Hamas for its horrific and unacceptable terrorist attack.
And there needs to be consequences for Israel for their horrific and ongoing attacks against Palestinians. Yeah, that's also... I will do the thing of saying, yes, what Hamas did was horrible, bad, should have never happened. Killing 1,400 people. Horrible. 10,000. Half of them kids. Like, these are two different things at this point. What Israel is doing and continues to do needs to stop. And we need leaders around the world like Justin to call for a ceasefire, to really not support Israel in this brutality. It's not a complicated question at this point. How many more innocent people need to die? How much of the land in Gaza needs to be destroyed? The homes that these people were living in. There's nowhere for them to go back to after they were forced to move. Over 1 million people told to move. But, they'll be allowed to go back eventually. To what? Rubble? And trying to rebuild when Israel won't allow proper building materials in? When you do this to an entire population of a area, because of the actions of a teeny tiny few, there's a term for it. Collective punishment. Yeah.
Of October 7th. But we need to do so in a way that minimizes the impact on civilians. And that's why we've been calling for humanitarian aid to flow into Gaza. We've been calling for humanitarian pauses to allow people to get that support in and to get Canadians out. Yes, we need to release the hostages. They need to release the hostages. We need to see civilian life protected.
With a ceasefire. You can do it. You can do it, Justin. Just grow a spine.
And if I could press you very quickly on the digital services tax issue, what
Let's get
exactly
back
is
to
the problem?
I love that. It's like, oh yeah, that stuff in Gaza. Yeah. Anyway, about those taxes. Let's get back to that.
With a pause, sorry, bad word, for waiting a year.
Can we have a pause on the taxes? Can we have a humanitarian pause on taxes? Just, wow, yeah.
To wait for the OECD framework to kick in. Why pick this fight now if in fact the ambassador's prediction comes true? What's the issue there?
Listen, the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister spoke to this earlier this week. We're a government that believes that everyone should pay their fair share of taxes. We are hopeful that there will be a common framework eventually sometime in the future. But we've been very, very clear about our responsibility to Canadians, particularly for services delivered to Canadians on Canadian soil.
Thank you. That will conclude today's press conference. Merci. Ça va mettre fin à la conférence presse.
Oh, the woman at the end just mentioned that there's a snowstorm at Mount Monadnock. So his planned trip to go climbing there might have to go on hold. So that was the press conference. I hope I made that a little bit more enjoyable, but let's get to a couple of things he said there. You know, that fair taxing thing, that fair taxing, you know, taxing across everything needs to be fair. Where is my tab that I'm going to pop up on that? Is it that? No, was it this one? No, was it? Here we go. You remember the Paradise Papers? Another hit to Justin Trudeau's middle class agenda. That was a big thing, like back in, 2017. Turns out a really good buddy of his. What was his name? It's a name that I probably can't pronounce. Justin Trudeau's chief fundraiser linked to offshore tax maneuvers, and that was found out in those Paradise Papers where over 3,000 Canadians were connected to. It was Stephen Bronfman, something like Bronfman. Bronfman. Yeah, that's the problem with having somebody like Justin Trudeau being prime minister and having to, work with these taxes and stuff and demanding who gets taxed more. Because to him, what is fair, it's different to somebody like what I would say is fair. Because all of his buddies are rich, the circles that he goes in are rich. And so, having tax havens and places that they can go, well, there has to be a little wiggle room there, huh? Yeah. The rich people always find loopholes in taxing, which is why all the loopholes need to not exist at all. And in order for that to happen, we need a prime minister who isn't so personally attached to those loopholes. Let's just take a quick chat in here. A quick check in the chat. Dyslexia, yay! I need my coffee. Diet Coke. Oh, you guys were thinking that liquid he was drinking was vodka? Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out. It was just a little bit bubbly, so a bubbly vodka? Uh, Schultz 41, sorry, I did not pronounce your name right. And you say, sigh, at least he's not Pierre Polyev. Yeah, that's... He's not the worst we could get, but he's nowhere near good. Let's see. So, Ammon Snyder? I am never going to get any of these names right. Like, everyone watches, like, Sam Cedar and always laughs at his inability to do it. And, you know, compared to me, he's flawless. I'm horrible at it. It's kind of like when people say that they're a bad speller, and then I'm saying, you know what, you and I, we should write letters together. That boosts their level of esteem because I often have to go to them to ask them how to spell words. Schultz 41, a cease tax. Yeah, that's what they want. They want a cease tax. Hello, Winter. Winter, hey Sandy, how do I email out DM you? I saw an interview on Gardening Channel about food access in Canada. That seems up your alley, and activists being interviewed would likely welcome a boost. I can look into it. If you want to email me anything related to my channel, it's leftofthebox@gmail.com. But I can't make any promises. When people... I appreciate suggestions on stories and content and stuff of that sort, but I can't guarantee that I'll get around to it because I barely get around to the things that I have planned. Yes, I'm also on Instagram and Twitter. Actually, do I have that? Oh, I have to get rid of the banner if I do that. Okay. And there, see? Getting so fancy with this. I don't need that banner there anymore because I'm moving on to sort of different stuff. Oh, okay. It's pronounced Schultz. Yeah, it doesn't... Sorry. Schultzy? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm just... Yeah. It's... Me and names are just not good. Anyway, let's get back to the horror of the news. So what are some of the reasons why Canada might be so, you know, unwilling to call for a ceasefire? This is from Canadian Dimension. It's time for Canada to end arms sales to Israel. The ongoing bombing of Gaza should compel Canada to reassess all Israel-bound arms, exports, and imports. Good, good. And oh, this was a while. This was 2 years ago, huh? This article, 2 years ago. Yeah, how some things never change. Since 2015, Canada has exported $57 million worth of weapons to Israel, including $16 million in bomb components. The ongoing bombing of Gaza, including of civilian sites, should compel Canada to reassess all Israel-bound arms exports and imports, such as recently signed contract with Israel's largest supplies 85% of drones used by Israeli military to monitor and attack Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza. Yet Canadian governments have repeatedly put arms deals with Israel ahead of the rights of the lives of Palestinians. Yeah, that's a real problem. again, this kind of goes back to, I know people would like Justin Trudeau to call out what happened at the Indian reservation residential schools. But he's not going to, because his dad was prime minister when they were still in operation. So as long as we're selling arms to Israel, how likely is he really going to want to call for a ceasefire when that's the case? Because again, these groups of politicians that get in there, they're so interconnected and their bubble is so small, and the laws that they put through aren't meant to benefit the people. They're meant to benefit them and, you know, their deals, what they want. Here we have Nikki, who said Canada used to be a leader in peace and diplomacy. Now we are known for selling arms and military tech, including to Israel. Yeah, because it's not just Israel that we're selling weapons to. Pretty much any conflict in the Middle East, you can be assured we're selling weapons to. Or anytime you hear of a story of like, oh, the Americans are selling weapons to this country, yeah, so are we. And this is why I say, you know, we need more cross-border solidarity, because let's just say hypothetically there was enough pressure put on the American government to stop selling those weapons. That doesn't solve the problem because we're still selling the weapons. It needs to be done in tandem. I think I said that right. Well, it's spelled Schultz, but there's a T sound in there. Okay, I'll try. You know, I will try to get your name right, Schultz, 41. Like, it's not that I'm just going to totally dismiss people's names. I will try, but I need to hear it. Having it written out doesn't help me much. I need to actually hear it for me to kind of click with it, because, you know, growing up dyslexic, trying to learn reading English when a lot of like letters and stuff it's not phonic. Our language is not phonic, which really confused me as a child, which is part of the reason why my spelling is so bad, because you don't spell things phonically. So unless I hear it, it's a lot more difficult for me to actually know how to pronounce it. But let's just hear what Nikki. So Nikki Ashton is NDP MP. I believe she's in Manitoba, Thompson, Manitoba, and she's
the Prime Minister to call for a ceasefire in Israel and Palestine. Mr. Speaker, I urge the Prime Minister to call for a ceasefire in Israel and Palestine. We must condemn the horrific killings of Israelis by Hamas, the taking of hostages. We must condemn Israel's relentless killing of Palestinian civilians in Gaza, including over 3,000 children. UNICEF has said that Gaza has become a graveyard for children. Let me be clear, Canada is complicit. Canada's arms exports to Israel are at record high levels, over $20 million exported last year. A significant percentage of our exports include explosives and components related to military aircraft. There is the risk they've been used in the bombings of refugee camps, hospitals, the killing of entire families. Canada used to be a leader for peace in the Sinai, in Cyprus, at the UN. We need to be that voice for peace now more than ever. Call for a ceasefire, the freeing of hostages, immediate humanitarian aid, and a two-state solution with peace and security, including the end of the occupation and a just peace for Palestinians.
Yeah, I'm glad the NDP, like this is the federal NDP here. And, you know, I'm glad that there's members there that are allowed to say this and not get kicked out. Just saying, you know, Sarah got kicked out for saying stuff very similar to that. And the Ontario NDP has yet to rectify that situation. But here you have a federal NDP saying, like, even stronger language than what Sarah did. And she's fine. She should be fine. That's the thing. You should be fine to say this stuff.
terrorist attack on innocent children. New Democrats condemn the Hamas terrorist attack on innocent children, women, and the elderly. Now, people who have nothing to do with Hamas are getting killed. Right at the outset, New Democrats call for a ceasefire, the release of all hostages, the protection of all civilians, and an end to the siege and bombardment of Gaza, and for humanitarian aid to reach civilians urgently and without restriction. We condemn all acts of anti-Semitism, anti-Palestinian racism, and Islamophobia, including any glorification or calls for the killing of innocent people, Israeli or Palestinian. As the siege and bombardment continue, a whole population could be wiped out. Humanity must be at the forefront of this war. Any war. We must support ICC investigations into all war crimes. Canada must end the arms sales to Israel and condemn settler attacks in the West Bank. We must invest in building a just peace for Palestinians and Israelis and put an end to the occupation.
Like, at least one of these parties is speaking up about it and actually saying, like, it's not even like a daring take or anything. It is just reality. That's all they're doing. It's stating reality at this point. What is happening in Gaza and the West Bank is wrong. You know, you can't just call out Hamas for the horror that they did without also calling out Israel for the horror they're doing. It's not like Hamas came out of a vacuum. It didn't come out of like nothing. There were things that led up to them being created, including support from the Israeli government. You know, terrorist groups, they don't form when everyone is happy. It's when everyone is looked after and supported and have all their needs met and stuff. And it's just so frustrating because you have here some politicians willing to call it out. And then Justin Trudeau was so close, just so close, and saying a ceasefire accidentally, but he almost said ceasefire in that press conference. And that was, that was on the 3rd, I believe, but he immediately had to do this. Like right afterwards, he's like, I spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu today. I reiterated Canada's support for Israel and its right to defend itself, in accordance with international law. We also spoke about the need for Hamas to immediately and unconditionally release those being held hostage. I reaffirmed the importance of upholding international humanitarian law. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because we're supporting Israel in breaking that humanitarian law and making every effort to protect Palestinian civilians. Every effort except a ceasefire. That would protect them right now. I express my deep concerns with the dire humanitarian crisis. What's causing that crisis? What is causing it, Justin? Huh? Justin? What's causing that crisis? And spoke about the need to create conditions for necessary aid to flow into Gaza. Like he had to immediately, as soon as he accidentally almost said ceasefire, he had to immediately put it out there and like double and triple down. It's like, no, I still believe in your right to defend yourself. You know, we got to keep those arms sales going. You know, we can't call Israel. It's always just about Hamas and what Hamas is doing, and they need to do all this stuff. It's all on Hamas to fix this situation. But as oh gosh, what's his name? Just went on the Piers Morgan show and everything. The former comedian, as he said, like there's a name for Gaza without Hamas, and that's the West Bank. Yeah. And that is Israel isn't doing this to Gaza because Hamas is there. They would be doing it anyway. Hamas is just the most latest excuse for them to go this full out. if Hamas hadn't attacked, then they wouldn't have been able to at least try to justify what they're doing, but now they can at least do it under the pretense of, trying to wipe out this horrible terrorist group, which, again, is part of the reason why what Hamas did is so detrimental, not just to the innocent people in Israel that they killed, but also to Palestinians, because they should have known that this would, in essence, give Israel the green light to go ahead with this level of violence. But I understand Hamas. Every other way of fighting back has been taken away. Peaceful boycotts, peaceful protests. Their living situation was horrid, like lack of clean drinking water. Because we're talking about the current deaths that are happening with the violence, but we don't talk about what's called social murder. Like the fact that the median age there is 18, that half the population is kids, means that adults are dying at extremely young ages, and they're dying because they don't get the food, the water, the health care, all that sort of stuff that's needed to survive. They're being denied that, so they're dying prematurely before they would if they were living in a country like, let's say, Canada. So when we talk about death tolls, those people are never included in that. They should be. But it's not just selling weapons. We also, as a country, like to buy them. Lifetime cost of Canada's F-35 fighter jets is $73.9 billion. Parliamentary Budget Officer. And that is for 88 planes. Because they started off with a number, but they'll say things like the acquisition phase will cost an estimated $19.8 billion. Report said including $10.7 billion for 88 planes, $2.1 billion for weapons and ammunition, and $5.9 billion for such things as design and depot costs, infrastructure, and training. Because when they buy these weapons of war, it's not just the initial purchase, but it's also the upkeep, the training, the storage of them that ends up costing taxpayers money. And if you think the $73.9 billion for 88 planes is bad, taxpayers face $300 billion price tag for new Navy ships, warns a parliamentary budget officer. And that is for 15 ships. Yeah. $300 billion for 15 ships. Weapons of war. I'd be fine not buying those. I'm just saying we don't need them. Like the way wars are going to be fought in the future, having things like this, because why have a fighter pilot and a jet go out when they're going to have drones go out and do it, which, lessens the risk to actual people, like the pilots. But also, well, I don't believe in war. I don't believe wars should happen. I believe that we should be, negotiating and using diplomacy to get out of horrendous situations. I don't. We have all the resources we need, and we can get all the resources we need through trade around the world. Like, there's no place in the world right now that has to go without. It's a choice when a country goes without at this point. And so wars were originally fought over like territory and getting land so that they could have the resources and power and control and all that sort of stuff too. But yeah, there's no reason for war. But I've always been a bit of I don't see violence as being the solution. Violence is an outcome of horrendous situations when, you know, again, needs aren't being met. But there's no reason why anywhere in the world anyone's needs shouldn't be able to be met in all the resources and technology and everything that this world has right now. There's no reason other than capitalist greed. Oh, let's see what the chat is up to. Oh, sorry to hear you have COVID, Mark. I'm hoping to get my booster maybe tomorrow. I've been planning on getting it because it's available now this week, but then Wednesday I didn't want to do it because I had a live stream in the evening and I was worried I might get sick, and then Thursday I was worried that if I got sick from it I had to take Lanier to the vet on Friday to get a little snippy snip, and he's doing fine. He's not missing it at all as far as I know. And his brothers were very happy to see him come back after being away for the day. I actually, let's go to main shot for a second. So the rescue that I got Lanier at was in a different city, and it's about a 40-minute drive away. And part of the adoption fee included him getting fixed, but since he was too young at the time when I adopted him, that was delayed till now. So I didn't have to worry about that vet bill. So to drive 40 minutes out there, I didn't want to drive home and then go all the way back out a few hours later. So I ended up going to a local conservation area that I hadn't been to in like 10 years and walked around, and it was a beautiful day. The sun was out. I did photography, got fresh air. There was a movie being shot there, so that was neat. This particular conservation area has a ton of movies shot there because it has an old mill and some caves and stuff that are really cool. Wow, was that ever needed though? Like, my foot regretted it. I was in a lot of pain, still am because of it, but just to have that clear mind for a bit, to be with nature, to do photography, something I enjoy. Like, with everything that's so wrong in this world and the horrors that we're seeing when we go on social medias and stuff, it's so important that people just find little moments here and there where they can just step away and recharge so that they can come back. Because as I'm always saying, do what you can when you can. There is nothing at this exact moment we can do to stop what is happening in Gaza right now. You can join the protests when they're available, write your MPs. If you're American, let's see. I will link to these again after the stream. I'll put the links to these again. Find your member of parliament if you're in Canada. Write them a letter asking for a ceasefire. Don't be abusive. And there's this thing from Jordan Newell that went around. If you're American, do those. Those are things that you can do. If there's a protest and you're physically and mentally able to partake, please do. I say that as a person who lives with disabilities, and I know it's not always possible for people to get out to these events for whatever reason, or maybe you have a job, or maybe you're afraid of, being singled out and being called anti-Semitic for participating, but do what you can when you can. And the times that you can't do anything, yes, still stay plugged in, still pay attention to the news, but also take care of yourself so that when the time comes and there is again something for you to do that you can do it with all of your being. Because if we start burning out, that doesn't help the long-term goals. It's important to take care of yourself. I say this as somebody who lives with autism and burns out quite frequently, and this month, I'll maybe get into that in a little bit. This month is just a rough month for me, but let's go back to... So this is the most accurate and realistic interview play on US mainstream media. Can't believe it. We need to blast this video to get it to more people. And Joyanne? Is it Joyanne or just Joy? Joy Reid. Yeah, this is definitely worth a listen, so let's listen.
And given these bombings are being done using our tax dollars, perhaps we should ask some questions. For example, how does bombing a densely populated land strip filled 50% with children constitute self-defense? How does bombing hospitals, churches, mosques, and UN schools constitute self-defense? Well, you say if Hamas fighters are hiding in the hospital using the civilians as human shields, okay, let's say they are. Are you arguing that flattening the hospital and killing newborns in their incubators and their moms in the NICU, cancer patients, someone with a broken leg, the doctors, nurses, and just the women and kids hiding in the hospital, that's not a war crime? Because you would be wrong, according to international law. Well, why don't the people in Gaza just turn over Hamas militants to the Israelis? Okay, how do you propose they do that? Hamas is the de facto government in Gaza, and they're the ones with the guns. The leaders of Hamas aren't even in Gaza. And if they were, if you were a teenager living in an open-air prison, getting bombed day and night by, let's say, Mexico, and Mexican police kicked in the door and raided your house anytime they wanted and turned off the water and cut off your food, what are you going to do? Side with them? Help them while you're dying? That's like asking why black folks don't help or trust the police. Okay, but after 9/11, we bombed Afghanistan in self-defense. Yeah, we did. And did that put an end to Al-Qaeda or get bin Laden? No, it did not. Because like Hamas, bin Laden wasn't in the country we were bombing. President Obama got him 10 years later in Pakistan using special forces and without bombing scores of kids to death. Bombing Afghanistan did buy us a 20-year occupation that got us more enemies in the Muslim world when we scooped people up on the battlefield and dragged them off to Gitmo. And when we threw in a gratuitous war against Iraq based on lies by a Bush administration that traded on our anger and our fear, the world rose up against us as we committed torture and tossed former Iraqi police and soldiers into makeshift gulags, and those prisoners later turned into ISIS. Oh, and the Taliban are back in control of Afghanistan. So again, what is the goal of mass bombing Gaza? Is it to find the people Hamas militants abducted on October 7? Okay, how? By flattening whatever shelter they're taking from the bombs? Don't you?
Yeah. Sorry, I had to Google a word while that was playing, but yeah, everything she just said. What is the goal? Like, what is Israel's goal right now with what they're doing? What do they think the outcome will be? And I think part of the reason why some reporters, some news anchors like Joy are getting more vocal is we're seeing it firsthand now through reporters that are on the ground, their people's cell phones, the average person. We're seeing the horrors. But also a lot of these news networks and stuff, they become more interconnected around the world and they get more diverse. And so there's a higher probability that people who work at these news organizations will know someone who has friends or family in Gaza. Like, these are becoming higher probabilities of having more personal connections to what is happening with what happens with the world and how it's connected these days through online news media, social media. Because, like, even if you don't directly work with a reporter in Gaza, they might be following them on Twitter. They might have had exchanges on Twitter. And so when they learn that that particular reporter has been killed by Israel, it hits different. And I don't think it's going to take too much longer before other people wake up to this, because a lot of journalists have been killed by Israel as well. And they were targeted. And so anyone in the news business might be feeling a little a little anxious about that. Because if Israel can get away with it, what's stopping their allies from doing the same if the time comes that they want to keep things quiet? Like, we're not calling out Israel on what they're doing. So if the United States or Canada starts to do similar things, who's going to call us out? And keep in mind, similar things have been happening with the Indigenous peoples in their treatment. And, you know, Amnesty International has called out Canada on some of that violation of human rights. But yeah, we just keep on letting them get away with it. Canada, the United States, these countries have far more power to do something about this than they let on. But let's go on to, let's do this.
Today in Canadian news.
I need to find a reason to use that every time I have a live stream because it is so cool. Chat is quite active. Let's see. Donald James X. Biden could call for a ceasefire, but he won't. If we in America want to do something about it, we need to elect a pro-Palestinian POTUS. Yeah. I think things are changing. According to my Google, this is the correct spelling of precipice. I can't even say it. I know what the word means. Yeah. Yeah, this is my Google spelling says it's this. It could be a Canadian American thing. I don't know. Maybe you're Canadian, so that wouldn't matter. But welcome to everyone else who has since joined the stream. It's nice seeing everyone come out. Okay, so Canada loves to brag about our healthcare. Yeah, we're going to be losing those bragging rights unless we start paying attention now. Expansion of private clinics likely to increase wait times in Ontario, report suggests. So, healthcare in Canada is complicated. It's up to the provinces to pay for the different services and things of that sort, but the federal government also has deals with some aspects of healthcare, like when it came to making medical assistance in dying legal. That was done on the federal level, so it was across the board. So there are certain things that the federal government kind of demands of the provincial government, and then it's up to the provincial government to use their spending for the healthcare. So it is, there are things that both levels of government can do to help that aren't. And in fact, the provincial governments, especially ones being ran under Conservatives, are being picked apart. Now, keep in mind, even when the provinces are run by Liberals, they're also being picked apart, just not as much as when the Conservatives are. So Ontario's plan to allow more for-profit clinics to conduct surgeries and diagnosis procedures is likely to increase wait times rather than reduce them, a new report suggests. The report released Thursday by the left-leaning think tank, because we gotta mention which way this tank leans, Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives suggests that for-profit surgical and medical imaging was a $500 million industry in Ontario between 2021 and 2022, and that expansion into the sector will only worsen the public health staffing shortages. Yeah, Doug Ford is on this. he definitely wants to work on privatizing as much healthcare as possible. And a lot of Canadians don't necessarily see, like, what's the big deal? And the problem is that we're running into a two-tiered system, and we're bleeding the public system dry because it's Canadian public money that goes to these private clinics to pay for them. But then there's also going to be more out-of-pocket costs, even though there's not supposed to be, there is. And you know, it takes away doctors and nurses and healthcare workers from the public sector because they're so underfunded and pay so poorly that they then move into the private sector. And so then if there's procedures that you want to get in a timely manner or a different type of procedure and all that sort of thing, then you have to start paying out of pocket in order to get these things done. So I believe the report that they're talking about. So this left-leaning report came out from the Ontario Council of Hospital Unions. First Vice President of CUPE Ontario and a member of CUPE National Executive Board. So that's the left-leaning report. So, and he states here, in Kitchener, for-profit cataract surgery is offered at $2,500 to $3,500 NI. It is free in the public system and the government pays $550. The Ford government promotes for-profit surgeries and is cutting hospital budgets in real time. This report out now. So, oh, no, this CUPE wasn't responsible for this report, so. Yeah, like, all this is about making rich people richer, to funnel money into the private sector where they can charge extraordinarily high rates versus, you know, the government pays that much. And some people will be like, oh, I just had my cataracts done and it's all covered and free. Yeah, that's because it's still public, but the type of cataract surgery apparently is different. There's different types of surgery you can get that will still solve the problem. It's just one might be easier to recover from and all that sort of stuff. And you can still wait and get it for free, but it'll just take a long time. But this is the report. I'll add the link to it. Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives is the one that did this. I'll link to this report below. It's 57 pages, so I'm not going to go through it. So Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives report calls for an end to private surgeries and investment in public hospitals. I am going to scooch down to the conclusion. Yeah, I suppose if you want, you can read this. But I like at least glancing at it, trying to read it, but they're not really designed for people to read for light reading. It can be a bit complicated and hard to understand for just the average person who maybe isn't aware of certain jargon. But in the conclusion of this report, the Ontario government plans to significantly expand surgical and diagnostic activity in the for-profit sector through new legislation and outsourcing contracts, but has made no firm commitments to fund and staff idle public operating rooms or implement system-wide improvements. Hospital operating rooms sit underused or shuttered due to a lack of funding and staffing. Physical space and equipment for surgeries and medical imaging is not the limiting factor in Ontario. What is missing is healthcare workforce necessary to increase surgical and diagnostic activity. The wait times that we are living with right now in Ontario, in Canada, when it comes to medical services, that's an artificial, like that was made. It was perfect. It was purposely made. It was artificially inflated, I guess you could say. And that was purposeful because then it makes people so desperate to get the care they need in a timely manner that they might start looking at these private options as like, oh, well, you know, if I just pay a few $1,000s, I can get it done now versus waiting a year, 5 years, whatever it is. Based on the research evidence and experience in Alberta, the Ontario government's plan to expand the volume and types of surgeries and diagnostics that will be delivered in for-profit facilities, including hip and knee replacements, is likely to worsen public hospital staffing shortages and cause longer waits. A larger for-profit sector invites more unlawful extra building, because they're always going to find a way around. They're not supposed to do that, but they find ways. And who's going to crack down on them? The government that wants them to get more profit? And two-tiered healthcare, as the evidence from the Western Canada shows. So basically, Ontario's going the route of Alberta, and Alberta's healthcare system is also getting privatized. It's pretty much anywhere with the Conservative government is working towards this, because for some reason they seem to... This shouldn't be a goal of any of our governments. And the thing is if any politician were to stand up there and say, we want to privatize your health care, generally speaking, they get laughed off the podium, laughed off the stage. But that hasn't been happening so much lately because our healthcare system has been crumbling so horribly that people are just tired of waiting and being sick. And the Conservatives keep on selling this like this will be the saving option. In recent years, Ontario has maintained the shortest wait times for orthopedic surgeries and diagnostic imaging among the provinces. It has done so without the significant for-profit involvement envisioned by the Ontario government. There is a significant opportunity cost to Ontario by pursuing greater for-profit provisions at the expense of public system improvement through streamlined referrals, single entry mode, team-based care models, and fully utilizing existing public operating rooms. For-profit surgical and diagnostic delivery comes at the expense of public hospitals and undermines efforts to reduce surgical wait times over the long term. However, by focusing on evidence-based policy strategies to increase and improve surgical and diagnostic volumes in hospitals, the Ontario government can reduce wait times. This will require a clear shift away from privatization and for the government to commit to public system improvement by... And they just list things like prioritizing the use of single entry and team-based referral models, reducing the overuse of medical imaging surgeries, because when it's for profit, they might ask you to get these things done unnecessarily because then they get paid more money, providing accurate accounting of public payment for profit facilities and so on. Ontario is on the edge of a precipice. Oh, I guess it is a C. Sorry, you were right. See, that's where I saw the word and that's where I was thinking. So I will change that. Stupid Google giving me the wrong spelling. Oops, no, there we go. Precipi. This is how bad my spelling is that I can't even remember it as I go back and forth. So then there's that, and part of it is my dyslexia. There we go. You were right, Schultz 41. Schultz C, Schultz T 41. Yeah, my spelling, but blame Google on that one. So anyway, Ontario's on the edge of precipice, pursuing a policy direction at odds with the evidence and policy experience in Canada's risk destabilizing public hospitals, increasing wait times, and entrenching for-profit hospital industry that seeks to dismantle public health care. You see, what people don't quite understand is when the Conservative governments, they'll usually try to say, oh, well, this is just a Band-Aid solution, it's just temporary and stuff. Once it gets switched over to these private options, it is extremely difficult to move it back to the public system. There's things within the contracts that would basically charge the provinces for the profit that they would lose if that privatized element is taken away from them, if they're shut down for public options. So once it gets privatized, it's so difficult to get it back to the way it was. And this is why I say we need to spend the next 10 years fighting just to get the healthcare we had 30 years ago, because it has been getting increasingly worse ever since it was first made universal healthcare. Both the Liberal and the Conservative governments have been chipping away at it. And the NDP is currently in a position like they were back then when we got the healthcare that we currently understand to be Canadian healthcare. We have the NDP in that position to put the pressure on, and they have failed miserably. I was really hoping for a leadership race with the NDP, because this is just... Yeah, I'm going to be getting older. That's how age works. And I want health care when I get older. You know, that's the thing. People keep on getting older, and as you get older, you need more healthcare needs. And I would like some sort of system, because like right now, my mom has to go to eMERGE whenever she needs like her medication renewed and stuff. You know, she has to wait for over a year for some of the scans and stuff that she needs, and then travel, you know, out of city to get what needs to be done. But here we have Don Davies, MP, also speaking to this recently.
Minister, for-profit clinics across Canada are currently charging desperate patients tens of thousands of dollars for two-tier access to non-emergency surgery. The clinics are exploiting a loophole in the Canada Health Act that allows people to pay to jump the queue as long as their surgery is performed in a province where they don't reside. In the last election, the Liberal Party committed to strengthening the Canada Health Act to protect the integrity of our public health care system. Minister, will you act on that promise and act to close this cash for access loophole?
Well, thank you very much for the question. I am concerned that coming out of the pandemic, our health system was weakened. We asked an enormous amount out of our healthcare workers, and coming out of it, there were a huge number of health issues that resulted in backlogs and challenges for provinces and territories. And certainly, one of the concerns that we talked about in Charlottetown is a concern about the growth in for-profit operations. You're absolutely right. We have an obligation under the Canada Health Act to protect the public nature of our system and to make sure that it stays public. I can say that the conversations in Charlottetown with all of the health ministers, that I was able to reiterate that and talk about a need to push out privatization that we see in the system.
Sorry, I have to...
These, please, for 6 minutes.
So that's the Standing Committee on Health. Because again, this is on the federal level that they're talking about this, because the federal level has the ability to make sure that these little loopholes and things are shut. So like here, if you go to the Parliament of Canada, you can see this is the Standing Committee on Health, and what are they up to? Oh, Wednesday, November 8th. That's just in a couple of days. Women's health. So they're going to be talking about that. Oh, good. So there's a first meeting scheduled for November 8th for women's health, and oh, a national 3-digit suicide prevention hotline. That would be helpful. So like these are some of the things that are done on the federal level. Oh, look down here, committee members. Let's take a look. Huh. Standing committee members for, and let's see, they're talking about women's health. Just noticing, there's a woman on the standing committee for we're going to be talking. So these are the people. Huh. You might be noticing a little bit of a trend here. Yeah. This is when Justin Trudeau said that he wanted to like balance the cabinet and stuff like that. Like he did that originally way back when he first got elected. Let's just say that hasn't been maintained. People were put into positions to be tokenized, and then once the headlines were faded and they were gone, things started to shift. And so now we have primarily old white men that will be having this meeting about women's health. Yeah. Okay, let's see. How are we doing for time? So those were like the main stories I want to get to. There was just some fun that I wanted to get to. Let's check. Oh, hello, Midi Doctors. Thank you for showing up. Thank you to everyone for showing up. This is great. I'm trying to see like how well these Sunday afternoons work out. My dogs are goth. Hello. The morons here in Alberta voting against their own interests. Oh yeah, there is a bit of a tiny story about that I was thinking of touching on. I'll be talking more about this article. So Danielle Smith signals support for parental rights as party members pass controversial resolutions. When I do the Million March for Children, I'll be adding this in, but also in this is just something so ridiculous. Attendees at the UCP AGM also voted on a number of other policy resolutions. They approved resolutions banning race-based admissions in post-secondary institutions and a resolution that would prohibit the implementation of so-called 15-minute cities. The horror! 15-minute cities! This is just... They have been so misled and brainwashed into thinking that something as beneficial as, you know, a city that you can use transit, bike, walk around in, that would take you 15 minutes to get to everything that you would need nearby, that somehow this is a big conspiracy to take away your rights. Yeah, debunking the 15-minute city conspiracy theory and why it erupted in Essex County. So this is also an issue here in Ontario where people are getting threatened who are planners, even though they might not even be looking at 15-minute cities, but they'll get threatened and people will show up at municipal city council meetings because of it and just demanding that these cities do not exist, that you can't get to everything you need in 15 minutes because they think, oh no, you're trying to control where we can go and give us cards, and if we step outside of our border then we'll get charged or something, when it's like, no, none of that. So people are fearful of a scenario where people would have a digital identification on them and would be forced to stay within a 15-minute radius around their homes, and that if people traveled beyond those boundaries, they would be tracked and targeted in different ways. Somehow they believe that this is a thing. And it's spreading. Like every conspiracy theory you see down in the States, like even ones that they've moved on to, they're getting new life breathed into them up here. It's just, people are voting against their own best interest, but they're not being sold, like they're not being told that, like everything is being framed in such a way that they're so fearful of these because of how it's been sold to them by the government, by right-wing influencers, that they believe these outlandish things that aren't based in reality. Like, why would you be forced to live within 15 minutes of your house? what use is that? Like, it wouldn't help the economy at all because a lot of people work outside those borders, friends, families, shopping, all of that. Like, what would be the purpose of restricting everyone to these 15-minute radiuses when it would collapse the capitalist system? Like, they just feed into these worst case scenarios, and the instant you try to push back, it's because you're woke. You know, you're woke because you want everything that you need within 15 minutes of your residence. Yeah, I would love that. In fact, most of the stuff, I'm very fortunate that I can get a lot of my stuff is within 15-minute walk to my place. Well, when I say a lot of my stuff, basically I live near a grocery store that I can walk to if I need to. And there's clothing stores nearby and things of that sort. But I still have to travel to see my doctor, to go to my pharmacy and other certain supplies I have to travel to. But I would love if my doctor, my pharmacist, my dentist, grocery stores, like all of that was within a 15-minute walking distance. That would be great, because then I wouldn't need a car and have to pay for insurance and gas and all that sort of stuff. If we had transit that allowed me to go visit my friends more readily. And, you know, when I lived in Toronto, I didn't have a car. You also didn't need a car in Toronto, because between the subway system and their transit, I was able to get around to everything that I wanted. And sometimes, you know, taking the subway was faster than street traffic quite often. And then for the times where transit wouldn't take you to where you needed to go quickly enough, you could easily just flag down a cab and get to where you are. So if we had like socialized taxi services that could help people get to places outside of that 15 minutes, then, you know, that would be great. Great for the environment, great for people's health. Let's see. Meanwhile, in Texas, they are banning people from using, so Sheldon is saying, meanwhile, in Texas, they are banning people from using some highways for the purpose of traveling out of state for abortion and healthcare. True. Yeah, you want to talk about being restricted? They are restricting people's rights in those ways. So my dogs are goth, classic fictional hypothetical issues by conservative instead of actual real issues. Yeah, it's all distracting so that a lot of the issues that would improve people's lives but make lives a little less inconvenient for the people at the top. That's all what it's about. Like, the people we have in power, they aren't making laws for the average person. They're making laws for the corporations and the wealthy few. And we need a government that is working for the people. But I wanted to go to something a little lighter, sillier. So somebody's saying, watching someone who won the lottery of life gleefully pretend to do minimum wage job that crushes people's hopes and dreams has me fantasizing about rebooting the French Revolution franchise for a modern audiences. Yeah, I don't know who this person is, but I'm guessing, given her attitude and everything she's doing, she doesn't need to work at a Walmart. And generally speaking, nobody has that much fun working at a Walmart. This type of performative bullshit really rubs me the wrong way. I have a video out from a while ago where the NDP, a couple of Ontario NDP members, decided to go on the so-called welfare diet for a couple weeks, where they would budget in for how much the average person on welfare would have to pay or get for groceries after rent and all that sort of stuff. And it makes me so mad that they think they can do this to get a better understanding of what we're going through. Because no, you can't. because you have to be there for a minimum 5 years of struggling with almost nothing. And then, you know, the pain that like working at a Walmart, the pain in your feet and your back, the stresses, you know, everything that you would be going through, the strain of living in poverty or the strain of living with always just a little bit less than what you need and not seeing an end in sight, you can't go on a 2-week tour of that. You can't just dip your toe in that and say, I understand, because what those NDP people weren't even paying attention to is the fact like, oh, this is just for groceries. But it's like, no, that's how much money people on Ontario disability would on average have to spend on anything other than rent. So it's not just groceries, but it's like your household needs. It could be insurance or entertainment, because the thing is that people keep on saying that or thinking that if you live with poverty, if you live with a disability, then you don't deserve any luxuries. That you're not suffering enough, that if you can afford Disney Plus, then you're not so bad off. Because you have to take away absolutely every element of joy in a person's life to make them suffer for not being able to participate in the capitalist system that the way it benefits them. And yeah, to do this, like, how does that make, like, just going back to this and the little hair flip and everything, how does that make the people who work there regularly feel? That they just come in here and they do a quick little photo op. For what? You know, she's not feeling the pain in her feet. She's not feeling the stress in her back, the stress in her bank account. Like, Walmart doesn't pay enough for people to live, like, to afford living near them or anything of that sort. And it's just, it is such a mark of privilege to be able to be like, I tried it for a couple weeks, wasn't my thing. To do that, trying to think, it's like when people tell me about my depression, they'll often tell me, and it's like, you know what, I understand what you're going through. I was depressed once, but you know, then this and this happened and I'm fine. So I totally understand what you're going through. And it's like, no, you don't. You don't understand what I'm going through, because in order for you to understand that, you would still have to be going through it. I don't see an end to my depression, and it has been ongoing since I was a child. It is part of my disability, and there are times when it can become almost impossible to manage. That is not something I get to opt out of. Okay, that's not something I can take a herbal remedy for, or I can, you know, do some meditation, or I can, you know, maybe with the exact right medication, because if any one of those things actually worked, I wouldn't be in this situation right now. So to see people just, you know, take on these hardships for clicks is bullshit. It's just pure bullshit. And it spits in the eye of the people who live like that, who struggle like that every day. Okay, so maybe that wasn't as light as I thought it was going to be. MIDI Doctor, media subscriptions is massively expensive. Yeah. Frodo. Everyone, here's Frodo. We got a Frodo. Down you go, baby. Get your paw on my shirt. There you go. There you go. There you go. You're safe. He just wanted some pads, and then I went and picked him up, and he doesn't like that. He just wants some pads. But just wanted to show everyone Frodo because, oh, I guess I don't think I'll be showing any more videos, so I won't need those on. Yeah, I just wanted to show people that he's doing okay, and he's been playing with his brothers. I can use like one of those pet wands and stuff, and all three of them will be like smacking at it at the same time, and they're getting closer to cuddling on the bed together, and it's just, yeah, Frodo, this cat is the world to me. And again, some of these people that live with this privilege, it's like, well, if you can't afford to have a pet, you shouldn't have one. And it's like, if I didn't have Frodo in my life, I wouldn't have a life. Literally. Pets can become lifelines. Let's see. BCAT-K, I say this all the time, but we've effectively removed empathy from society, and that's by design. Yeah. Schultz C41, aw, my aw button is being smashed right now. Yeah, Frodo, he is so sweet, and he play fights with Lanier right now. He hasn't played fight with Abernathy, but it's just so funny because Frodo is so much bigger than Lanier that he just kind of envelops him when he wrestles him. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, he had a vet scare, like a health scare a little while ago, and thanks to the generosity of all you wonderful people, I was able to get his vet bill of almost $2,000 paid off, which he is now the most expensive thing in my apartment. He's probably like the most expensive thing I've ever paid for. So those were like the main things that I wanted to cover. Yeah, I have to be careful over the next few days. Tomorrow is the anniversary of something that, let's just say, as an autistic person, if I'm worried that it's TMI, considering how much we tend to dump when it comes to personal stuff, I don't know how appropriate it is to share on here. But I was really hoping things could be different by tomorrow in my life. And I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah, it's a really rough anniversary. Content warning about what I'm about to say. Yeah, tomorrow will be exactly 10 years since I almost died by my own hand. And the only reason why I didn't, because it wasn't an attempt. I was interrupted. A friend with a key to my apartment randomly went to check on me. And if he was 30 minutes later, I wouldn't be here. And tomorrow's 10 years since. And I'm still wondering if I'm grateful I didn't go through with it. Yeah. So that's where my headspace is at. Like, if anything, I was really, really hoping my book could be published by now. I've been led on for almost a year with it, with this one publishing company who said that they were going to publish it, and then for some reason or another, they just never got around to it. And so I'm kind of left back at square one of trying to figure out if I can self-publish it, which with my ADHD, if that was something I was capable of doing, I probably would have been able to do that by now. So am I looking for a new publisher? I don't know. They're not getting back to me after being told that they were going to publish my book. Like, just having that accomplishment, something to show for the 10 years since. But yeah. And this is why I keep on trying to tell people, like, it's so important to be kind to yourself, because you never know when your own events in life are going to catch up to you, when your own thought patterns can change, and then just the added pressure of like what's going on in the world and stuff, it can make you wonder, like, why is any of this worth it? And I think it's, you know, like, I do this channel because I see better possibilities out there. I see a better world is possible if enough people get informed and get involved. You know, there's a lot of injustices that happened in my life that I will never, you know, get resolved. And I want to stop that from happening to as many people as possible. That's originally why I was trying to get into politics. And after failing at that, that's why I decided to start doing this. Because I don't want people to go through the same things I did. Better futures should be awaiting the next generations. And we have the ability to do that. So it's important. If you haven't written to your MP yet, please do so about calling for a ceasefire. If you can participate in protests and rallies, let's actually see some good stuff. This will be the quickest way to get to some of them. Thousands of people demanding a ceasefire now in Vancouver, Canada. That's Lance from the Serfs. He often goes out to the ones that he can. Let's see. We are witnessing the largest U.S. anti-war protest since the Iraq War. Look at that. All those people are on the right side of history with this one. You know, we're not staying quiet on this. People are pushing back. The pressure is building. Even this one. This photo's from Yellowknife. They even had a rally up in Yellowknife in the snow. Thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people across Canada and the United States got together for this. I love, let's see, I should have it. Here's the Reuters PitchBot satire. Dozens march in support of Palestine in Washington, D.C. Because that's pretty much how the media would portray that. Oh no, Elon Musk is upset. Yeah, that is like, I wish I could be part of that. To have like traveled down to Washington, D.C. for that one. Like, even just going to Toronto is a bit of a stretch sometimes. I have been there for certain rallies and protests, but you know, with my mental health and physical health, even getting to local ones can be a bit of a challenge. So, let's see. So, Looney Tunes 9000, don't be afraid to express yourself even when bigots say you can't. You be you, Sandy, and let the haters hate. We all love you, Sandy. And thank you. Yeah. Right now, I'll just go over again what my plans are. So Tuesday, I'm trying to set up my regular live streams for 7 p.m. I'm not entirely sure I'll be able to get to it on Tuesday because there's a meeting with a group that I volunteer with that is setting up an event for next month. That's a pretty big event, so I might have to miss it. And if I miss it, what I'm going to try to do is get that Million March for Children video done and premiere it at that time. Next Sunday, C's from the Power Report will be on here. I figured we could have a lot of fun, and we're going to go over older Jordan Peterson video clips, like from before I was a content creator. And there were things that he said way back when that I wish I had a platform to have commented on because they were just so ridiculous and nobody was saying what needed to be said. So that should be a lot of fun. Yeah, if I can't get the video done on time for Tuesday, chances are it's because I'm not feeling great, so then I might just try to do a light live stream. Please, if you can, support my content. I know times are tough, and the vast majority of people who watch my channel are also in my situation. But if you do have extra money, you can sign up to become a patron, or if it's just a one-time thing, purchase something off of my Amazon wishlist. Link is in the description box below. In the next few days, I'll be removing all of the candy that I put on there because of the Halloween live stream that I did. I was in costume and I did tricks. Oh, that could be interpreted wrong. I was in a costume and I did some math tricks and did some little performances for people for my Halloween live stream. So if you think that is worthy of a trick-or-treater, then there's still time to buy the candy off my wish list. Share my content. I can do all of this stuff. Yay! I'm getting smoother with this whole OBS thing. So up there, that's the Patreon. It's linked below. You can email this channel about content here at LeftoftheBox@gmail.com. Oops, these are my social medias: Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I don't post on them. Well, I'm on Twitter 24/7. I don't post on Instagram and TikTok the way I should. I have 2 TikTok videos I posted recently with 1 view each, courtesy of me. So please, if you can go to my TikTok and just boost some of those by watching them, that would be great. I am trying to cut up my live streams into segments so that I'm releasing more content throughout the week. Also, you can check out my art here, SandeeLovas.com. And if you want to check out my Instagram for my art and cats, you can go to SandeeLovas on Instagram. But then also, if you want to email me about my art and only my art, you can go to SandeeLovas.com or at gmail.com. Yeah, I'll just do another quick glance over at the chat to see if anybody else has anything. I'll scroll up a bit. Oh, I should be able to get another cat here. Abernathy. Abernathy. He actually comes when I call his name. Abernathy. Come here. Maybe you don't get to see a kitty this time. Well, thank you everyone for coming out. Thank you to the mods. Thank you to everyone who's already become a patron or purchased something off my wish list. Every little bit helps, and I appreciate you all. Let's see. Looney Tunes 9000. Always be kind. Yeah. Okay, so if they're on the right wing and grifting, then I'm not necessarily going to be kind to them. I'm just saying. Kind to people, not to institutions. Come up here. Come on. We got a Lanier. Here's a Lanier. Oh, he is. He's recovered from his surgery. Up you go. Up you go. I think he's still a bit sleepy. See his little white gold teeth thing? It's so cute. Yeah. He has like a little white. And he sticks his tongue out randomly, like right now. He's sticking his tongue out. Yeah, he's a sweetie. Although he has, he broke a plate, and I'm like in autistic rage that my set isn't, that I have to get a new set because I can't handle 3 saucers and 4 bowls. That doesn't work. So I'll have to just get them replaced. Luckily, it was just the Dollarama ones. But I can't have incomplete sets. That's just a big no-no. And he did launch himself at me today when he was playing with his brother and super hyper inactive and sliced up the back of my arm. It's like, I love the little guy, but... But like, here he is. He's sticking out his tongue right now and just wanting to be held and cuddled. So how can you not think he's just the sweetest thing in the world? But he is such a pain in the ass, too. Yeah. He loves to snuggle. Are you going purr for everyone? He is purring. Is it loud enough? Oh, Looney Tunes, before you leave for Sandy's Environmental Coffee House stream at 6 p.m., click the like, share buttons, and subscribe. Yeah. So, yeah, check out Environmental Coffee House later on. Letter Hack is having a call-in show tomorrow evening. I might not be calling into that one because tomorrow evening won't be good for me. I'll have to find something nice and relaxing to do, I think, by the time the evening comes around. There you go. No, he just wants to sleep. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. I'm still figuring out like a way to unwind these streams to end them, but Looney Tunes Lot B Fun Half. Hey! That's not for you to play with. Now he's going to rip my ear off. Great. Anyway. So, Tuesday, there will either be a premiere or a live stream. And other than that, yeah, be kind to yourself, be kinder to others, be kind to others, be kinder to yourself. There you go. Yeah. So, salut, à la prochaine. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your tomorrow is better than your today.